WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Conakry, 1 p.m. in Abuja, Nigeria. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Benin's President Wadani begins second leg of regional tour in Senegal, Mali and Burkina Faso today. Nigerian government says first batch of citizens to be evacuated from South Africa will arrive on Wednesday.
This aircraft must come to South Africa, and our citizens who are imperiled will have the chance to be brought back to their country.
Several election candidates in Guinea challenged municipal election results in court, alleging irregularities in vote tallying.
The results initially announced by the CECV were altered by the DGE. We are calling for our rights to be restored and for justice to be done.
Malian journalists detained following remarks considered critical of the military government. Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Joy.
Thank you for joining us. Newslink begins with an update on the second leg of regional tour by Benin's President Romuald Wadani, with scheduled visits to Senegal, Mali and Guinea-Bissau beginning today, Tuesday. The visits are aimed at deepening regional cooperation and economic integration. It also follows similar visits to Nigeria, Niger, Burkina Faso, Togo and Cote d'Ivoire. Abdullah Hassan has the details.
The trip comes as West African leaders seek to strengthen trade, political dialogue and collective responses to security challenges faced in the region. It also forms part of Benin's ongoing diplomatic engagement with member states of the West African Economic and Monetary Union, known as EMOA, which shares a common currency and regional monetary institutions. During the tour, President Romuald Wadani is expected to hold talks with his counterparts and senior government officials on strengthening economic and commercial cooperation, promoting cross-border exchanges, and advancing regional integration. Security cooperation is also expected to feature prominently in discussions as countries across the region continue to confront shared challenges linked to instability, violent extremism, and cross-border threats. Analysts say the engagements reflect Benin's efforts to reinforce political and economic ties within the sub-region while supporting greater cooperation among West African states.
That was Abdullah Hassan with that report. In Guinea, several candidates in the recent municipal elections have turned to the courts to challenge the results announced by the electoral authorities. The candidates accuse the General Directorate of Elections of altering vote totals and are seeking judicial review ahead of the final certification of the polls. Imo Edit has the details in this report filed by our Conakry correspondent Cherno Alpha Ibrahim Abalde.
Courts across Guinea on Monday began hearing appeals from candidates contesting the results of the May 31 municipal elections. The petitions were filed by candidates who claim that figures published by the General Directorate of Elections do not match results recorded at the administrative vote tabulation centers, which are responsible for consolidating ballots. Among those challenging the results is Jibril Firawa Toure, head of the Mbesia Dabo movement.
Our list found an inconsistency between the figures in the CSCV minutes and the results published by the DGEC. We were called before the court, so we provided explanations regarding the difference in the figures. We presented the arguments available to us, and I sincerely hope that the court will rule on the matter.
Another candidate, Ali Badra Conte of Matam Commune, also appeared before the court, alleging that results initially announced at the vote tabulation centers were altered before being published by the Electoral Commission.
The results initially announced by the CECV were altered by the DGE. We are calling for our rights to be restored and for justice to be done. We deployed our representatives to all polling stations and our agents were present during the vote centralization process. Therefore, We have all the supporting documents today. We simply want our rights to be restored, and we are satisfied with the initial result provided by the CACV, because at that level, all political parties were represented.
The courts are expected to review the petitions and supporting evidence before delivering their rulings on Wednesday. The decisions could determine whether any changes are made to the municipal election results before they are formally validated.
That was Imo Edith with that report. From Guinea's election-related court challenges, attention now shifts to Mali, where a journalist has been remanded in custody following proceedings before the court's specialized cybercrime court in Bamako. Johanna Takio, director of publications of Le 22 September, is accused of undermining the credibility of the state following remarks made during a Pan-African media forum in the capital, Bamako. Here's a report by our correspondent Aliu Cham from Bamako, presented by Usman Umar.
Following several hours of questioning before the Specialized Judicial Unit for Cybercrime, journalist Chahana Takiu has been placed in pre-trial detention and transferred to the Bamako Central Prison, where he spent his first night in custody. He is being prosecuted for allegedly undermining the credibility of the state over comments made during the Pan-African Media Forum held last week in Bamako. The director of publication at Le 22 September had criticized the transitional authorities, saying they had failed to establish a clear and effective process toward peace and national reconciliation at a time when the country continues to face major security and political challenges. He also questioned what he described as Western narratives in court, a term commonly used in discussions about Western media coverage of Mali's security crisis. These remarks are believed to be at the center of the charges leading to his detention. His trial has been scheduled for July 27.
A report by WADR's Aliu Cham in Bamako, presented by Usman Umar. In Senegal, a court has handed a 20-year prison sentence to an Islamic school teacher convicted of raping and sexually abusing 28 girls. 27 of the victims were students placed under his care. The verdict, delivered by the Criminal Chamber of the High Court in Diourbel, concludes a case that sparked widespread public outrage and renewed debate about the protection of children in religious learning institutions. During the trial, several victims stood by statements made during the investigation, while the accused, Serin Kadimbake, rejected all allegations. He argued that he is the target of a conspiracy linked to his role as a local prayer leader. However, after reviewing the evidence, the court found him guilty on all counts and imposed the 20-year sentence requested by the prosecution.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now we cross over to Nigeria, and the first batch of Nigerians seeking to return home from South Africa will arrive in the country on Wednesday, June 10th. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the evacuation, initially scheduled for Monday, was postponed due to logistical and operational challenges. The move comes amid renewed anti-immigrant tensions targeting foreign nationals in parts of South Africa and follows similar repatriation efforts by Ghana, which had already brought home more than 900 of its citizens. WADR's Yechenusa Situ reports from Abuja.
The federal government had earlier approved a series of evacuation flights to assist Nigerians willing to return home amid growing concerns over their safety following renewed anti-immigrant protests in parts of South Africa. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bianca Odumegu Ojukwu, explains the situation.
The repatriation is on course. Mr. President himself has reiterated the fact that this aircraft must come to South Africa, and our citizens who are imperiled will have the chance of getting on this aircraft to be brought back to their country. The figures keep increasing. Once the citizens are cleared, they are given a paper that indicates that they are free to go.
The minister maintains that many of the affected Nigerians are law-abiding residents and business owners who have contributed positively to the South African economy.
They cannot be said to be illegal migrants. People who are doing legitimate business have their shops looted. So to say that Nigerians who are in South Africa doing legitimate business are illegal migrants is absolutely untrue.
The evacuation plan follows weeks of tension in parts of Pretoria and Johannesburg, where protests against migrants have raised fears among foreign nationals, including Nigerians. South African authorities have condemned the attacks and pledged to take action against individuals and groups responsible for acts of violence and intimidation. For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja.
National Assembly members in the Gambia have questioned government spending in the energy sector amid persistent electricity outages affecting households and businesses across the country. The concerns came during the parliamentary discussion on the 2026 budget implementation, where lawmakers highlighted low spending by the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy. They also raised questions over funding to the National Water and Electricity Company, NAWEC, and the broader sustainability of the sector. Sang Donald Mendy filed this report from Banjul.
Lawmakers have expressed concern over the Ministry of Petroleum and Energy's low budget execution rate of just 1% in the first quarter of 2026, describing it as one of the lowest among government institutions at a time when electricity outages remain a major challenge. Members of the National Assembly question Finance Minister Sidi Keita on why spending remains so limited.
No wonder if 1% is the execution rate, we will face this on and off.
Petroleum and Energy posted the lowest execution of the budget.
What concrete measures is your ministry taking to ensure timely implementation of government projects?
In response, Minister Keita defended the government's commitment to the energy sector.
The 1 billion was not paid in the first quarter, but rather in the second quarter, because it's quarterly payments, and the first installment was effectively paid in April.
Meanwhile, concerns were also raised over the energy sector's growing debt burden and the government's exposure to loans used to expand electricity infrastructure. Lawmakers urged authorities to accelerate efforts to attract independent power producers, arguing that greater private sector participation could help ease the financial burden on the state and improve electricity generation capacity. The discussions underscored growing parliamentary concern over energy sector management and the urgent need for sustainable solutions to the Gambia's recurring power supply challenges. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Now to Ghana, where President John Dramani Mahama has ordered a comprehensive performance review of ministers and heads of state institutions. The assessment will determine whether officials are retained, reassigned, or affected by any future government restructuring. The directive also bars political appointees from accepting awards from private organizations without prior approval from the Office of the President. WADR's correspondent Nadide Tete reports from Accra.
Ministers and heads of state institutions in Ghana are set to undergo a performance assessment linked to the government's policy priorities and development agenda. A directive from the Office of the President says the review will examine service delivery, implementation of government programs, management of public resources, and the overall impact of policies on citizens. The presidency says the findings will help determine whether ministers and chief executives are retained in office, reassigned, or affected by any future government restructuring. The performance review was announced as part of a wider directive restricting political appointees from accepting awards from private organizations without approval from the Office of the President. That announcement has generated public interest, with some Ghanaians welcoming the move as a step towards greater accountability in government.
It's a step in the right direction. We are all in this country. We are not seeing what they have done.
It comes to me as a surprise that this action is being taken after the fact. Don't let it take place and then after that you come and issue an apology, or after that you issue a statement. After that you then put in place measures. I mean, because then it would have already been done. Accra is flooded, sanitation, and then the ministers are taking award. It's not good for the optics.
Government officials have now been urged to focus on delivering results and improving public services rather than pursuing external recognition as the administration seeks to strengthen accountability and performance across the public sector. For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal, and online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Benin's President Wadr begins second leg of regional tour in Senegal, Mali, and Guinea-Bissau today. Nigerian government says first batch of citizens to be evacuated from South Africa will arrive on Wednesday. Several election candidates in Guinea challenged municipal results in court, alleging irregularities in vote tallying. Malian journalists detained following remarks considered critical of the military government. Still ahead in the news, we have press review, guest interview, and sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thank you for staying with us. The Liberian government has opened an international policy roundtable on local governance and rural development aimed at strengthening decentralization and improving service delivery. The meeting brings together policymakers, researchers, and international partners to explore strategies for inclusive rural transformation. The forum is expected to produce recommendations to support ongoing governance reforms in the country. Abraham Parker reports from Monrovia.
More than 150 delegates from Africa and Asia are attending the week-long forum, which runs from June 7 to 13. Discussions will focus on key areas of governance reform, including fiscal decentralization, community-driven development, digital governance, and climate resilience. Opening the event, Liberia's local government minister, Francis Youmani, described the gathering as an important step in advancing the country's decentralization agenda.
Your presence reflects our shared commitment to advancing rural development, strengthening local institutions, and improving the lives of the people we serve.
The Secretary General of the African Asian Rural Development Organization, Mano Newdilson, called for stronger collaboration among countries to address persistent challenges facing rural communities.
And most importantly, motivating leaders like you, many leaders sitting here, and on the dais, all the leaders we appreciate who are trying to tackle those mammoth quagmires and problems in our countries.
President Joseph Boakai, speaking at the opening, reaffirmed his government's commitment to decentralization, stressing that development must be reflected in the daily lives of citizens.
In how we address rural neglect, whether farmers can access markets, whether young people can find opportunities close to home, whether women are empowered to participate fully in decision-making, and whether communities have access to essential services.
The roundtable is expected to produce recommendations and a roadmap aimed at strengthening local governance and accelerating rural transformation across the country. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, today's press review takes us back to Liberia, where WADR's Abraham Parker is standing with a summary of major headlines from the front pages of local newspapers.
This edition features 3 local dailies. Front page Africa, of course, takes the lead with these stories. Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission opens preliminary review of Alternative National Congress complaint over Mano River UN Peace Center project in Liberia. It says, digging for the truth. This paper is reporting that the Alternative National Congress, a political party in Liberia, has written the LACC to investigate the ongoing $10 million project in Lofa County. Jury selection begins in Liberia's largest human trafficking trial as defendants plead not guilty. Our next stop is Heritage Newspaper with these stories. Senate results in Dakar and LPRA petroleum dispute. Human Rights Governance Roundtable taking place in Liberia, and the Minister of Local Government, Francis Humane, has described the International Roundtable as an important platform for strengthening governance systems and promoting rural development initiatives. And NAFAS accused Morocco deals. Our last stop is the newspaper with these stories. European Union releases 100,000 in emergency aid following windstorms in Nima and Lofa. That's according to the nation's news. Vice President Coon breaks ground for U.S. $12.7 million TVET project in Nima County. Hatchery restored to full capacity. Boaka welcomes repair of damaged turbine. Doomsday prophecy instigating division. Opposition backs a prophet. Liberia launches diplomatic complaint. That's according to the nation's newspaper. And SOS call for a Liberian journalist, May Azongo, as she battles serious illness. That does it for this edition of Press Review from Liberia's capital, Monrovia. Thanks so kindly for listening. It's back to you in studio.
That was Abraham Parker with the Press Review from Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest segment focuses on Nigeria's evacuation exercise for its nationals from South Africa, which commences tomorrow, June 10th, 2026. The government's decision comes amid renewed tensions attributed to recent anti-migrant violence in South Africa, which has also targeted citizens from other African countries, including Ghana. Over the weekend, officials in Accra completed their evacuation of nearly 1,000 Ghanaians from South Africa. Speaking about Nigeria's repatriation program is Kemiebi Imomo Timi Ebienfa, spokesperson for the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He first explains the migration status of the returnees.
There are two categories. There's a category of Nigerians that are living in South Africa legally. They satisfied all legal requirements. They are living there legally. But because of the tension, they are not comfortable to continuously experience molestation, instigations, abuse, or unnecessary derogatory comment by the ringleaders of the protest, so they want to return back to Nigeria. There are also another category of Nigerians that are in South Africa but don't have the right legal requirement to continuously stay in the country. So instead of running away from law enforcement or having issues with the police, they also want to return. So those are the two categories that signed up for the evacuation.
What sort of package or initiative is being provided by the government to support their reintegration process?
We have a standard operating procedure as regards returnees or Nigerians that have been evacuated from different parts of the world. Normally, we have different ministries, agencies, government departments that perform specific roles. So first, on arrival, they will be accommodated in the facility that is operated by the National Refugee Commission, and there they will be profiled. And from the profiling, we will ascertain those that are maybe, for example, victims of trafficking, and know how best to give them necessary orientation, counseling, as the case may be, to reunite them with their families. Those that have lost businesses or have been exposed to violent protests, as the case may be, they too will be counseled and undergo necessary therapy sessions before uniting them with their families. And again, there will be the provision for a starter pack for some category of persons for them to at least restart their lives afresh in the country. And again, since the flights are arriving in Lagos, definitely there will be the facilitation of transportation to different parts of the country that they belong to.
So this startup pack, how much is it in dollars? Do you have any knowledge?
We can't disclose that.
And so is it a one-off payment?
Definitely the data for all those arriving will be collected. So if there are those that will need maybe training, vocational trainings or business-related training to give them that sense of belonging and make them to start afresh in Nigeria, those services will be provided from time to time.
Is the Nigerian government also aware of some of the concerns, frustrations, or anger among a section of the population that is asking for the removal of some South African businesses from the country?
We are aware of those concerns, but we've called on Nigerians not to take the laws into their hands. And so far, so good. No South African business has been attacked in Nigeria, in any of our major cities. No, their businesses are still thriving. All what government is concerned about is the welfare, security, protection of our nationals in South Africa, and will continue to also do that for South African businesses and their nationals that are living in Nigeria.
That was Kimiebi Imomo Timi Ibienfor, spokesperson for the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, speaking on the evacuation of Nigerians from South Africa. And now it's time for some sports news. In Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has paid tribute to the country's young football champions, welcoming the national under-17 and under-15 teams to the presidential palace in Dakar. The two sides recently brought home continental glory, with the under-17s winning the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco and the under-15s lifting the CAF African School Football Championship in Zimbabwe. Congratulating the players on their remarkable achievements, the head of state urged them to balance sporting success with their education and to remain guided by the values of respect, humility, and fair play. President Faye reminded the young champions that while talent can win matches, it is character that wins titles. A Somali referee set to make history at the FIFA World Cup has been denied entry to the United States. Omar Abdulkarir Arthan was expected to become the first Somali official to referee a World Cup match, but FIFA confirmed he will not be able to take part in the tournament after U.S. authorities refused him entry. FIFA said immigration decisions are the responsibility of the host country and indicated that Artan's status is not expected to change. Despite the setback, Artan struck an optimistic tone, thanking FIFA and the Confederation of African Football for their support and wishing his fellow referees success at the tournament. U.S. Customs and Border Protection said a Somali national arriving in Miami from Istanbul was deemed inadmissible following security vetting procedures. That's all for the sports news. And with that, we have come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudaju for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. You can also stream live at wadr.org. I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.